Hi, I'm Cheryl Gordon, and I wonder if you're like me. Some mornings you wake up and you slept funny or something, and there's a crick in your neck, or maybe you carry a lot of tension in your shoulders, like I do. So I wanted to show you a few things you could do. This is a very quick sort of shoulder rehab sort of thing. Take no more than 20 minutes. So let's have some fun together and see if we can get our shoulders and our neck into a little bit of a happier place. So I'm going to start first of all with a lying down position that we call constructed rest. You can see on my mat here I've laid out a blanket just to cushion my spine a little bit. I'm working on a hardwood floor, so I kind of like that little extra cushion. Some other things that we might be using in our practice today will be a yoga strap. If you don't have a yoga strap, you can use an old necktie or a housecoat belt or something like that. And you may also find a chair helpful. I just have this old antique kitchen chair I got from my grandma's house, and I won't tell you how long ago that was. But it comes in handy if you don't want to weight bear on your knees in our routine today. So let's start with lying down in constructed rest. So I've got the blanket cushioning my spine, my knees bent at a comfortable angle. I don't have to have the feet really close into the body. I don't have to have the feet close to each other, just at a comfortable angle. And take a moment just to kind of relax my spine and establish some concentration on my breath. So shoulder tension, neck tension does not start there. It starts in other places in the body. There's nothing that we can really isolate out from this area. So you might be feeling the tension more in the upper spine or in the neck, or the shoulder joint, but it started other places. So we're going to start our practice probably where the tension originates. So we'll start with focus on the breath. As best as you can, breathing in and out through the nose in a slow, regular rhythm. And it might take you a little bit longer to settle into this. So you can just pause the video, and then when you feel like you've kind of got a focus on the breath, come back and hang with us. So you can see I'm breathing quite slowly, and I'm trying to even my inhale to my exhale. If you're not ready to move yet, just pause the video, take a little bit more time to rest your back and establish your breath. But if you're ready to move, let's start with an inhale. And as you exhale, gently hug one knee in towards the chest. Notice I'm not pulling really hard on that knee. Inhale again. Exhale, other knee into the chest. This is a gentle little loosening for the low back. The low back is a source of so much tension up the spine. So I want to start there on our foundation. Now an option here, you could keep moving like this. The other option would be to exhale and let the other leg stretch out and hold for a few breaths. If it's too early in your practice to do that, then don't worry about it. But this can be a way to really start to relax and release some tension from the low back. And then when you're ready to switch sides, you inhale and exhale. Notice I'm holding behind the thigh, not in front of the shin. I don't want to put any extra strain on my knee. Good. And then let's come back to our constructed rest position. If you check in with the breath, you may find that there's been some changes. While you were busy loosening up the low back, it can have some lovely ripple effects up the spine, loosening the diaphragm, loosening the lungs, loosening, yes, even the shoulders. Let's keep working with that. I'm going to take my feet a little further apart, relax the angle of my knees. This is a dynamic movement. I'm going to inhale, and as I exhale, let the knees fall to one side. As I inhale, come back up, and exhale, let the knees fall to the other side. Now notice I'm not putting any pressure on myself to get the knees all the way to the floor. The intention of this movement is just to kind of loosen up the low back. They loosen up the pelvic joints. They can get so tense. We have to do a lot of sitting, especially now so many of us are living our lives on a computer, right? Notice the shoulders are staying relaxed to the floor. There's no work for your shoulders to do yet. And that's nice that they get a little bit of a break. Let's go to one more side, and then that will make an even number of rotations for me.
And even though I'm talking too much, I hope you're following your breath with these movements. Take a breath in and out. Notice any changes that are happening quite naturally or spontaneously as you work with your breath. Okay, the next movement involves lying over on our sides. I really appreciate having this cushion underneath. Now there's a couple things you could do here. If your shoulder will allow you to, you can use this arm as a pillow, but I know there's a lot of us that have some discomfort there, and you may want to have an actual pillow or a folded blanket will do the job so that you can keep your arms straight out here and you don't have to stress out the shoulder joint. Now that's too low for me. I'm going to have to fold that blanket again. So don't be afraid to play around a little bit and get that support underneath your neck so that when you lie down, you feel as though your spine is more or less perpendicular to the floor. Level with the floor, not perpendicular. I may have that blanket a little bit high, but I won't fuss too much and take up your valuable time. If you do find that you have a lot of tenderness in the back or your hips or knees are cranky as well today, put a little pillow in between your knees and hold your legs in a parallel position. Again, I won't take the time to fuss right now, but at home you could pause this video and you could take the time to get the props just right. Bring your arms out together if you can, at least that top arm stretched out, and begin to bring some awareness to this shoulder blade, the top shoulder blade. And keeping the rib cage pretty quiet, keeping the hips pretty quiet, let's start to move the shoulder blade. So I'm going to take an inhale and I'm going to pull back that top shoulder blade. And then as I exhale, I'm going to let that shoulder blade roll forward. As best as I can, I'm keeping the torso quiet. It's not rolling back and forth. I'm making this movement about the shoulder blade on the upper ribs behind me. Often our shoulder blade gets a little sticky on those back ribs. I mean, I can't see it. I don't think about it that much. So what I'm trying to do here is kind of just really let that back shoulder blade have a little bit of looseness. Good. And you can work this as long as you like. Pause the video, continue this exploration until you feel that, yes, I've got some mental connection to my shoulder blade. I can feel it starting to dance around on those back ribs. When that happens, you can let the body have a little bit more movement now. And notice that as that shoulder blade starts or initiates the movement, a whole bunch of other places want to come to the party. And that's okay, because one part of your body doesn't move by itself. Every part is connected to every other part, and so they can all be part of the party. Let's just roll around a little bit. So not only are we working on that top shoulder blade here, but we're also massaging the bottom shoulder capsule. So it's nice to kind of bring hydration and circulation to all the tissues of that bottom shoulder capsule as well. Good. All right. Let's go back into our constructed rest. I'm not going to be needing this big pillow when I roll back over. So coming into your constructed rest and just taking a moment to observe the changes that have happened, not only just in the shoulders, but go back to looking at the changes in the breath. Now when you're ready, you can just roll over to the other side. I'm going to get up and flip around so I can still see you, but you just roll over to the other side. And then set up your props in a similar fashion. There could be a little difference on this side depending on the asymmetry in all of our bodies. It can call for different things. And then we'll begin the process again. So remember, the ribs stay quiet, the pelvis stays quiet, initially head's quiet, just the movement in that top shoulder blade. So as you inhale, drawing the top shoulder blade back, and exhale, feeling the shoulder blade roll forward. So while I'm going to continue on with this exploration, just like we did on the other side, I want to talk a little bit about pillows. When you're a side sleeper, I'm a side sleeper, you want to think about getting a pillow that supports your head so that your spine is more or less parallel to the floor, like we talked about a minute ago. If you're more of a back sleeper, then you really don't want to have a pillow that lifts your head up a lot higher than your spine. It will pull on the muscles of the neck and the shoulders all night long and end up giving you a little bit of strain. So often in yoga class, I encourage people to minimize the use of a pillow under their head when they're lying on their backs to the point where there's almost nothing there. I'm starting to move a little bit more now. I'm starting to let some looseness come into other areas of the body that's initiated by the loosening of the shoulder blade on the back ribs. And you can stop the video and continue playing with this for as long as you like. But I'm going to ask you now to just roll back over onto your back and find your constructed rest. So I'm going to slip back over where I was before, but you're fine where you are. Just roll over onto your back and notice your breath. And there may be some changes, yes, in the shoulders and neck. Okay. So we're in constructed rest, and I'm going to be using my strap now. So you want to take the strap about shoulder width apart. So my arms are pretty much parallel, and my wrists are completely neutral. I'm not holding the strap with the wrists bent at all. My wrists are completely neutral, and my elbows aren't bent. My elbows are completely neutral as well. Feet are placed wherever they're most comfortable, wherever you think your low back and your hips can find the most comfort. This movement is very simple, but I want us to really take our time with it. So start with the arms down here. And as you inhale, begin to lift the arms. Take a good 6-second inhale if you can. And then exhale, lower back down. Now this looks like a very simple movement, but I'm really testing the range of motion of my shoulder. We want to make sure that we're using the shoulder in a pain-free range of motion with not a lot of clicking and clunking. Now my chair is preventing me from dropping my arms right behind my back, but that would be available if you could move the arms like this with no clicking, no clunking, no pain. Then you can drop your arms as far back as you like. If you're experiencing any of those other things, then you want to stop and reduce the range of motion so that you can get this movement without the clicking or the clunking or the pain. This is a really important time to communicate deeply to your very heart that you won't do anything silly to your shoulder in your practice today, that you'll really take care to listen and modify the movement if that's what your shoulder needs from you. Good. And then we can release the strap and we can come back to constructed rest and just notice the shoulders. When you're ready, let's make the arms into a little bit of a different position. You won't need the strap for this one. Lift the arms comfortably overhead. Leave a soft bend in your elbows this time and touch the fingertips. So this is what I remember when I was a little girl. I used to do ballet. This reminds me of ballet arms. This is again relatively simple. Keep the movement within a pain-free, sound-free range of motion. So inhale and exhale. And inhale and exhale. Notice the breaths are still long and patient and easy. Good. I'm going to get into some more full body movement in just a moment, but I just wanted to get these shoulder warm-ups done. Notice the changes in your breath. Maybe we're using something like a 6-second inhale matched to a 6-second exhale. Last movement from this position. Let's see if it's possible to take your arms into a cactus armed position or a goalpost armed position. For many of us, we'll be noticing a little bit of strain to hold our arm in this position. So you can use maybe that extra blanket you had before and prop up an arm like this so that there's not the full pressure on the shoulder joint. If this is a pain-free range of motion for you though, let's go here. This could be our inhale position. And then as we exhale, lifting the arms, or lifting the hands I should say, rotating through the arms and touching the palms lightly to the floor. And then inhale and exhale. Now if your tension radiates up the back, up through the shoulders, into the neck, here's a little something you can add. Roll your head gently to one side as you inhale, and roll your head gently to the other side as you exhale. Leave the full weight of your head on the floor, and don't force yourself to move the head too far in any one direction. One little thing you can add to this is imagine that you've fallen asleep like Rip Van Winkle and you've got his great big huge 20-year-old beard. And as you swing from side to side, that beard swings, taking your lower jaw into a loose, relaxed movement. In other words, relax your jaws. Let's go to each side one more time. And then relax in your constructed rest. Okay, so we've brought some gentle lubrication to the shoulder and the neck, and we're ready to start putting it together. What goes on in the pelvis, in the core, and then what goes on upstairs here in the neck. So please roll to your side carefully. Let your head be heavy as you push up from the floor. And we'll change positions now to move to mountain pose. So I'm just going to take my blanket off to the side, and I'll be using my strap in my mountain pose. So finding balance through your feet. Everything that we do in standing, whatever standing pose you execute in yoga, it starts at your feet. So lift and spread your toes, massage your feet into the sticky mat, even out the weight that you're pressing on right and leg. I'm just going to put my strap down for 2 seconds. I just need both hands for this first little preparatory bit. You can stay right where you are. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see this a little bit better. For mountain pose, is it possible that you could put one hand in the curve of your lumbar spine and the other hand in the curve of your neck? So you just have you just touch yourself in those places and you just have a sense of what's going on. Now for my body, I have some exaggerated curvature in those places. My neck and my lumbar spine have more curve than some other people. So it's even more challenging for me. Now we're going to go into a little tiny vinyasa here, a little flow, and we're going to use a spinal extension movement. Spinal extensions are brilliant for taking shoulder tension out of the body, but you need to be really intelligent as you execute them. So as you take an inhale, I want you to stand up as tall as you can in your mountain pose, and then exhale, feel this part of your body firming. Feel this part of your body firming, and extend the spine, making the space of the neck and the space of the lumbar spine longer. Good. And then inhale back to mountain pose. So let's try that again. This will be in the vinyasa. We won't have time to put our hands everywhere, but I want you to feel that extension. Sometimes we call this back bending in yoga, but I want to really talk about it as a spinal extension. The whole spine, each vertebra lengthening away from its neighbor, social distancing, I guess. So let's try that again. One hand on this curve, one hand on the neck curve. Inhale, stand up tall. Exhale, gather the core energy together, then extend, making these spaces longer, and then inhale back to mountain pose. Okay, so let's bring that knowledge that we've been building about how to extend the spine into our little vinyasa. So I'll stay facing this way. You're fine facing the video. If you can comfortably, lift your arms and interlace your fingers behind your neck. If it's hard to hold your arms up like this, your shoulders are that sore, even one hand is too much, then just work with your arms closer to the ground like this. When we're ready, we're going to inhale in mountain pose. Exhale, come into half forward fold. When you're ready to inhale, extend the spine, and then exhale, push the neck actively up into the hands. Inhale, stand back up. So let's try that again. Inhale, a mountain pose. Exhale, forward fold. No pressure on the neck, the hands are just hanging out. Inhale, half lift. As you exhale, push the neck isometrically up into the arms and the hands. And then inhale, come all the way back up. Again, one last time. Inhale, mountain pose, extend the spine. Exhale, forward fold. I'm certainly not pulling on my neck. My hands are just there. Exhale, inhale halfway up. Hold this as you exhale, push the back of the neck into the hands, and then inhale all the way up. And let's relax in a neutral mountain pose. So we're really working on strengthening the muscles all along the spine. When our spinal muscles are weakened from too much sitting or an injury, overuse, then we may find that we have to hold ourselves up with our shoulder muscles, these poor trapezius muscles up here. So stronger back muscles help the shoulders and the neck. Now when you're ready, we'll come into our standing half moon stretch. This is commonly done with the arm reaching up, but today let's let the hands rest on the hip bones and keep the shoulders very relaxed and loose. We're really going to focus on the space between the armpit and the hip bone, so just the side body here. Let's inhale, knees are soft. Exhale, tip to one side. Inhale, come back to center, and exhale, tip to the other side. The reason I asked you to keep your knees slightly bent, very soft, is just so that your hips can stay forward and you're bending straight out into the side plane, not reaching forward towards the ground in front of you. Now you can keep moving dynamically from side to side, especially if your range of motion is a bit limited, and many of us have a lot of tightness, especially if you have a history of back pain. You can have a lot of tightness doing this movement. But if you want to, you can start thinking about holding one side and letting your arms really be heavy. Imagine that you're holding a really heavy piece of luggage or purse in this hand, and just let yourself drag to one side. Notice this hip is staying more or less in line with the ankle and the knee. I'm not letting it push way out. I want to concentrate the opening between this part and this part, just in the side body. So if I shove my hip out, I'm going to get an outer hip stretch, which would be another class. I want to really open up here. And then if you're moving dynamically, keep going. But if you're holding from side to side, let's make our way to the other side now. And the interesting thing about keeping the arms just loose is that you really start to feel the tension or the tightness right in this part of the body. Good. And then let's even out from side to side if you're still moving dynamically, or return back to mountain pose when you're ready. Now notice the changes in your breathing. Because when we look in the mirror, we see the front part of our body, that's where we usually think about things happening. But remember, your body's three-dimensional. So we were working on the back body, we were working on the side body. We're just bringing all parts of your power to the forefront of your mind, so that the shoulders and the neck don't get left doing all of the work. That so often happens. So please turn sideways on your mat. Take your feet a generous distance apart. We're going to come into an extended triangle pose. Let's take our time with this and know that you don't have to move very deeply into the pose to get a lot of the benefits. So when you choose how far apart to take your legs, keep in mind that everything's integrated. If you're always pushing to the full depth of your hip flexibility, that could be why your neck and shoulders are so nervous. They don't trust you. So maybe don't push yourself quite so far into taking your legs apart if you're one of my more flexible friends. From a parallel position of the foot, we're going to keep our hips just like this, but turn the right leg bone in the socket so that the toes now are facing the short edge of the mat, and let your right knee have a slight bit of flex to it. It's important not to lock that knee. When you lock a joint, joints surrounding it become more tense.
and we're trying to get rid of tension through all of this. Sometimes if the low back is a little bit touchy, or if you do have hip or knee issues, you may want to take this leg, step it forward 1/2 inch, and turn the toes in a little bit. Sometimes that can help. So play around with the stance. You can pause the video again and work on this stance until it becomes more comfortable for you. Then when we're ready, we'll take the arms and we'll inhale, really pulling them right out from the heart center. As you exhale, tip to the side. Inhale, swing the top arm as far as you can in a pain-free, quiet range of motion. And then exhale, come back to the starting position. So let's do that a couple more times. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. And I'm going to do that one more time. You're using your nice, long, even breath. No need to rush. Sometimes I think all that rushing around, trying to get everything done, that's why our shoulders are in such bad shape. Good. And then let's bring our feet into a parallel position and just pause with that for a second. And as always, I'd like to come back to how this makes you feel with your breath. Okay. Let's find our stance the other way. So turning the left leg bone out, letting a little bit of flex come into the left knee as much as you need to be confident, adjusting the positioning of this leg or this foot. So finding a confident stance. And then the same thing, inhale and exhale and inhale and exhale. So repeating those movements. Remember, a pain-free range of motion. And that means pain-free everywhere, not just your shoulders. Patiently visiting with your body, accepting that your body has a lot to tell you. Sometimes it's hard to have these critical conversations, but we're not going to make any progress until we learn to listen. That works in all relationships, but especially today, the one you have with your shoulders and your neck. Right. And we'll gradually bring our legs together into mountain pose again. And just notice how the whole body may feel a little bit more collected. Take a breath in and out. Now the next posture involves coming down onto the knees. So this is where you may want to have the chair handy. The chair gives you an option to do everything we're going to do, but you don't have to be on your knees. So if you wanted to, you would get yourself sorted out with a nice firm chair, a chair preferably where your hip joints are a little bit higher than your knee joints. And you may, for my tall friends, you may need some support underneath your hips in order to achieve that. For those of us who can weight bear on the knees without much trouble, you might just want to make sure that you have a blanket or something like that under the knees so that you have some cushioning there. So whether you're on the chair or like me on the ground, we're going to come into a high kneeling position, preparing for camel pose. I want to make sure that our thigh bones are in a parallel position. For me, this has always been a challenge to make sure that the thigh bones don't wander away from each other and splay out. So you may have to almost feel as though you're going into internal rotation with the thighs. So let's take the hands in the same placement that they were when we were in the standing back bend a little bit earlier. Should I say standing extension. So take one hand to the neck, the other hand to the lumbar curve. And let's do exactly what we did when we were standing. We're going to inhale, stand tall, and as you exhale, gather the belly muscles a little bit more firmly and extend the spine. Let's release that as we inhale, and we're doing the extension on the exhale, which is a little bit different than sometimes camel pose is taught.
And we want to really focus on expanding or lengthening the neck and the lumbar spine as we extend. Now once you can take a rest whenever you need to. Once you feel you've got that kind of, I can extend, I can really feel long, there's no pinching in my low back, there's no pinching in my neck, let's hold the extension and release both arms. Maybe your hands rest on your sacrum. But this will ensure there's no pinching in your low back, no pinching in your neck. You're truly using the muscles that will strengthen your neck and strengthen your back. Take one more breath in. And as you exhale, either just relax in the chair or come to sit in a kneeling position. So if being this bent in your knees is just not going to work, that's where the chair can come in quite handy. Last little thing with the strap, let's grab it the way we did earlier in class so that our wrists and our elbows are neutral. They're not locked, they're just an open channel for energy. And I want to really make sure that as we come into this position that we don't thrust our ribs forward. Sometimes in our hopes in yoga, we want this open heart and all this kind of stuff. What we're actually doing is exploiting the flexibility here. We're not really getting into the center of that chakra or that center that we want to. So when you come into this position, before you lift your arms, think about that core stabilization that we were doing from our extensions in standing or in camel pose. So the belly comes in, the low back lengthens, and the neck lengthens. You've got that stability and length in the spine. So from that position, maybe exhale into that position. Inhale, lift up your arms. Good. Keeping the core really, really tight, begin a little circle with the strap. So you're pulling your arms apart on the strap a little bit. So there's a little bit of tension there. But notice my rib cage is quiet. Notice my pelvis isn't moving. Notice my torso's not doing circles. Just a movement in the shoulders. Good. And then let's take that in the other direction. And it doesn't have to be a very big circle in order to really feel it. And then we can release that. I'm going to come back down onto my back for a closing posture or two. If you don't have a blanket on the floor, you might want to get one at this point. So I'm going to come back down onto the ground for a little work in bridge pose. I think bridge pose shows up in every one of my own practices that I do. It's just such a brilliant posture, and it works so many different angles and so many different things. Today I want to use bridge pose as an opportunity to give ourselves a bit of a pranic bath. Let me show you what I mean. So we'll be a bit more precise with the placement of the feet than we were earlier in this position. I've got the feet right under the knees right in line with the hip joints. So everything's nicely symmetrical. You're going to press the feet into the floor. The feet have a very important job here. Now I want to use bridge poses. It's a little bit of an inversion in that it lifts the hips higher than the heart, and the heart's a bit higher than the brain. So it reverses the flow of gravity on the body. I'm also going to create an arm movement, something like this. And what I'm going to do is kind of use the intention of this, use the power that I have in my hands to move the energy in the opposite direction to what it would have been if I was sitting at my desk or even standing in mountain pose. Let's try this together. When you're ready, we'll inhale, lift the hips, and exhale, lower. So just get the mechanics of this movement. Remember, we tried to keep the low back really long in our extensions earlier. So try to keep the neck long and the low back long as you move into this. So once bridge pose is established and you feel okay with that, as you inhale, lift up the arms and bring that lovely energy right up to the crown of the head. And then exhale, lower down. Inhale, pranic bath. Exhale, lower down. So these might not be the highest bridge poses that you've ever done. But this isn't the time to really push to grand levels of achievement. This is a time to start working on the more subtle layers of your experience. Let's maybe do one more. Bathing yourself with prana and then releasing what you don't need back to the earth. How does your breath feel now? You're welcome to stay in constructed rest for a few minutes if that is a more accessible posture, or if you want to stretch out into the traditional Shavasana shape, let's do that together as well. Feel free to close your eyes. You may need to grab a blanket if your room's chilly today. And let go of all need to control the breath. Feel the weight of your limbs heavy to the ground. And allow yourself to receive that support. I mentioned earlier that sometimes I think all the rushing around we do in life contributes to that tension in the shoulders and the neck, the vulnerability to injury. So let's just take a few moments so your shoulders and your neck feel the support of the earth. They feel you're caring, and they know they're not alone. If you have time, please stay in Shavasana for another 5, 10, even 15 minutes. But if you feel like you need to move on to the next activities in your day, slowly press yourself up the way you did earlier with your head hanging heavy. And let's just close our practice by sharing the sacred sound of Om. I'm inhaling now. Namaste. Let's do yoga together real soon.